All right, so as everyone is filing in for the event, I will get all of the boring stuff out of the way first. Thank you all for attending tonight, both the authors and the hosts and all of the audience members. A bit about us: we are Belmont Books. We're located in the greater Boston area outside of Cambridge. We're an independent bookstore. We will be celebrating our 5th anniversary in June.
That's unbelievable.
It's very exciting. We're kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do for that, but we're very excited. If you are local, we are open for browsing. We'd love to see your faces and help you with books and all that sort of stuff. Of course, we have Erica's book. And so, Erica, did you come in and sign? Do we have signed copies?
I did.
Okay.
I did a long time ago.
Yeah, so we have signed copies of Erica's book in the store if you'd like to order from us. We are open for browsing, but if you're not comfortable, we do curbside pickup if you just want to grab and go. We also ship throughout the US. So if you are not local and you're attending from somewhere else in the States, we are happy to ship to you. If you haven't attended one of our virtual events before, I will introduce our panelists tonight, and I will turn it over to Mark, who is our MC for the evening. And then we will have a Q&A roughly at 7:45 Eastern time. If you would like to submit questions for Erica or Mark, there is a Q&A function. So it looks like 2 little speech bubbles at the bottom of your screen. You can submit questions there. It just makes things easier to keep track of for anyone who's moderating. In terms of our events calendar, we're kind of working our way back into some in-person events. So I know around late May, early June, we'll be putting some in-person events on the calendar if you miss those. I know, very exciting, very nerve-wracking all the same.
I know.
We're still doing some virtual stuff here and there, but we're kind of excited to have events in the store again and have that energy. So please take a look at our calendar if you feel so inclined. I feel like the rest of April is pretty open, so we get a nice little break before the summer starts. I will start tonight by introducing Mark. Mark Cecil is the host of the Thoughtful Bro author interview show on A Mighty Blaze, where he conducts long-form author interviews with an eclectic roster of guests, including New York Times bestselling authors, MacArthur Genius Grant and National Book Award winners, as well as debuts of all stripes, both fiction and nonfiction. And of course, the author we are all here to see tonight, Erica Ferencik. Erica Ferencik, an award-winning novelist, has received glowing critical praise for her literary thrillers featuring women who face extreme physical challenges in nature, even as they grapple with internal struggles. Devoted to authenticity in her craft, Erica spent weeks in the wilderness of northern Maine as research for her debut novel, The River at Night, an indie next pick that New York Times bestselling author Ruth Ware called raw, relentless, and heart-poundingly real. For her hair-raisingly vivid follow-up, Into the Jungle, Ferencik journeyed 100 miles up the Amazon to experience firsthand the lush and perilous Peruvian jungle. Now inspired and informed by a month-long trip to Greenland, Ferencik sets the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, and Wall Street Journal's editor's pick, Girl in Ice, in one of the most unforgiving, unforgettable landscapes imaginable. I will turn it over to Mark, and I will be back should any problems arise.
Thank you, Amanda. That was wonderful.
Hey, Mark.
Erica, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. I wish we could see everybody that was watching.
I know.
But welcome everybody. Anybody who's listening, thank you so much for coming. This is going to be fantastic. I just want to lay a little bit of groundwork. I know Erica very well. We are old friends, and I must say, I knew this book when it was just a gleam in her mother's eye. I remember, Erica, we were out at dinner. It's got to be maybe like 3 years ago.
I know.
Remember, right? With
our
good friend Joe Moldover. And we were sitting there, and you were like, I was like, so what are you going to work on next? You're like, I don't know. I just have this thing about this girl in ice. I don't know if it's going to work. Like, what do you think? And like, she's all grown up now, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, then I disappeared for 3 years. I'm like, yeah, that's
But it's just so funny. I mean, I just love it because this book is just getting such great reviews and it just seems like such a hit. And it's just funny because like, just note to any writer or aspiring writer out there, like, you know, the way that Erica was trotting this out at dinner like 3 years ago or whenever that was just so, you know, she's so uncertain about it and she doesn't know, but here you stick with it and look what you get. You get like what is bound to be a bestseller. So I'm gonna try to get into some things that were most interesting to me about this book. And I just want to tease that like about halfway through the interview, I am going to lay down what I think is the true meaning of this book. I believe this book is a grand metaphor for something, and it can be read on multiple levels. And I just can't wait to share that with you, because when it hit me, Erica, I started reading the book like both as the meaning that it took for me as a metaphor and also like as a thriller. And it just was so rich. And I just can't wait to see what your reaction is to that. So,
and this is a world premiere of Mark's theory, and it's a world premiere.
This, ladies and gentlemen,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, I have a.
Is what you've all come to see, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Mark's big idea. No,
Mark's big idea. I'm really serious about that.
Well, it's all because of your book, Erica. I mean, I have a great idea because you have a great friggin' book. All right, so I'm going to start in an unusual way, and I never do this, but I have to do it. And I just want to draw attention to Erica's author photo, because I think, Erica, that this is like one of the great author photos of all time. I love it. It's like you have this like kind of windswept look, but you're totally put together. You're like, you know, you look like some kind of like international like woman of mystery, but you're also like somebody you'd want to have a beer with. I mean, this, and it's authentic. Like this is like, it like totally expresses like who you are. And I just want to call out, like, I look at a lot of author photos and like, this is just such a great one. Do you like this photo? Do you think this is as great?
No,
as
I love that photo. And actually I remember the moment. No, I love that photo. I'll never look like that again, and that's fine. But I was 6 years ago. And I was with my photographer, Kate Hannon, who I have to give a shout out to. And it was a day like this, only 20 degrees colder. It was like 45 degrees, and we're outside, and you know, the wind is blowing, and my hair looks even worse than the wind. And I was just thinking about the book, you know, and I was thinking, you know, how it's awful to be an author. All you have 99.9% of your day, 99.5% of your day is self-doubt. Am I right? So I was turning toward the camera and I was just thinking, fuck it. You know, I was just thinking, all right. So I turned toward her and I was like, all right, well, que sera, sera, you know. That was my 0.01 moment of confidence in the day. And I think that's true in the photograph. It's really funny, you know, and but she won awards for that photo. It was just one of she won awards, that she won some kind of portraiture award for that.
I have an instinct for this thing. Like, I mean, I don't just call out any photos. It is a good photo objectively.
Just, it doesn't even matter who I am. I mean, well, you know, I think it's a combination of luck and skill, and, you know, a little Photoshop went on. I think I had a little chin tuck, a little lift, a little, you know, I had a boob lift for that, and it's so, you know, but that's bulb and black to help.
What you got to do to sell a book?
I mean, skin to win. So I'm like, cool, you know. But all right, yeah, thank you. So that was a very fun day.
Oh my gosh, what a result!
I recommend
that's so satisfying that she won an award for that. Okay, so we're gonna actually move on to real questions. But before we get to that, I want to also ask you how you're doing on like the book tour. And like, so this isn't just how's your book tour. I also like just am curious specifically about this. Like, do you like this part of the process? Like, I'm just kind of curious, like, so let's just divide up the cycle for making a book. You think of the idea, you write the book, get feedback on the book, rewrite it, give it to your editor, or you sell it, then your editor has it, then you edit it, then you're on book tour. Like, is there a part of that which is like loathsome to you and another part that's like ecstatic, or is it sort of all has its own charm?
It all has its own charm, and I hate all of it. No, I mean, I think that there are so many you're talking to a Libra here. I mean, there's so many pros and
Hey,
cons to
fellow
all of it.
Libra.
I'm talking about it, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I like this, but I feel, you know, we're, and as writers, we're introverted extroverts, we're extroverted introverts. I like it, but then I get sick of myself, totally sick of myself. I feel like I'm repeating myself because I am.
Mhm.
And I also feel that when you write and sell a book and publish a book, it's like you're so exposed.
Yeah.
But then you're triply exposed because you're doing these things. And sometimes I feel like what I'm doing is like nothing to do with the book at all. And I have to, and I'm doing the dog and pony show, you know, I'm doing the dog and pony show because, you know, and then I think, wow, you know, in the, you know, 40s or whatever, I bet they didn't run around and do, you know, 60 events and try to sell books because there are probably 3 books published a year and they didn't have to do stuff like that.
Mhm.
But, you know, now I'm sort of feeling like I'm alienating people, but, you know, there is just, you know, you do an event, you have a good time, people have some laughs, you feel good about it. You know, you want to show people a good time. You want to talk about the book.
Yeah.
Maybe people will learn something. I don't know. That's not I love writing okay, my favorite is when I'm writing the book and I feel like it's going well. That's my favorite right there.
You know, I have to say, because I do so many author interviews, Erica, and like there's a common answer to that question. Like I said, like people are sort of all over the place. Authors are all over the place. But one particular moment that many authors say they like is this moment where the book, it's like past the first draft and probably past the second draft. And it's sort of this moment where you like just get over the lip of the hill and you're like, oh, I have a book now. And then you're just sort of charging to the finish line.
Love that. Give that to me. Well, it's almost like it's the joy of anticipation. Nobody cares about Christmas. It's the lead up, right?
Yeah.
Christmas comes, you have this sinking feeling. You know, the day after Christmas. Oh, what a feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's an anticipation, and you know, the reality of publishing a book is you can't please everyone. You can't even please everyone in your so-called target audience, you know,
Right.
and you have to accept that and run with that. And I'm, you know, you learn it.
Yeah.
And but then you really do please people, and it's lovely, and you get lovely emails, and it's lovely. So
well, I am pleased. I was very pleased with this book, and I'm going to start to kind of explain why. Like one of the things that I liked most about this book is that to me it was sort of a combination of 2 genres, fairy tale and thriller. Now outwardly, this is a thriller, absolutely. You know, if people are looking for a thrill, like this is an exciting, interesting thriller. You've gotten comps to Michael Crichton, which I think is great and appropriate. You know, but I think like to me, because I sort of like speculative fiction and I like myth, and you know, there is such a strong fairy tale element. It's like, what is the fairy tale element? You know, you start out with the girl, she's frozen and she's been unfrozen. It's the first few pages, you hit us with that. It's very exciting. You know, your main character gets an email with a recording of this woman this young girl who's been unfrozen and is speaking in this language that nobody on earth speaks. And you know, so what is fairy tale about that? I mean, there's like a resurrection aspect. There's kind of you know, it's almost like a haunting ghost story in a way, because it's like somebody, like a message from beyond the grave. Has come back. Somebody has come back with a message for the living. You know, that's she wants to tell us something very urgently. So anyway, I guess my question is here, you know, you're such a great thriller writer, and like you know, the beginning of this book and the end of this book in particular just move. I mean, the first 5 pages of this book, it's just like bang, bang, bang. You waste 0 time catching us up in the story. But there's also this like mythic haunting element. And I just wondered, did you feel like you wanted to play with these 2 genres, or is it just, that's just how the story came out and there's no explanation for it? Or
no, you got it completely. You know, actually in the beginning, I mean, the way I thought of the story, I was walking by my house in the winter of 2017. There was a frozen pond. I saw these turtles and they were frozen, juvenile painted turtles, frozen mid-stroke. And I thought, oh my God, they don't look alive and they don't look dead either. So I ran home and Googled it. And then I thought, why not a girl in a glacier? And I just saw her foot and she was just running. But so great, from there, I had to build the story back and back and back. Who is she? What happened to her? What, how could she possibly thaw out alive? What's her backstory? And so then it started to have layers and make more sense to me, and became a voice from beyond, I guess, the grave. A voice, really just a voice, a warning voice from the past to our present, dealing with greed and scarcity of resources, man's inhumanity to man kind of thing. And so, does that answer your question?
It really does. I'm interested. I've heard you talk about that before, this inspiration of like seeing the foot of the girl. Can you just like talk about that moment? Because I just think people generally are very fascinated with this kind of classic writer question, which is asked so often, but rightfully so, because it's one of the best questions and it's one of the most mysterious questions, which is, where do you get your ideas? And here you are, this image appears to you of this girl running, and like, did you know right then you have a novel? And I mean,
yeah. I knew right then I had a novel because, well, as I have said in other talks, I mean, this story combines my, my 5 loves, and one of them is an Arctic setting. So this is my 3rd book, right? I was like, I want to do everything that I love in this book. I want to put everything that fascinates me, not that I'm trying to throw it all together into a pile of unformed yuck, but like what can I combine of my favorite things that I love and fascinate me and give me the shivers? What can I do? And this was it. Science, language, Arctic setting. I love the story of Frankenstein. There's no Frankenstein in the book, but this, I mean, I love, life from death stories of reincarnation. She is not reincarnated. She literally never died, as my book tells it. But I just came home and I just saw a foot, from the side of a girl running, and that was really it. And I don't know where that came from.
It's so powerful and it's so mysterious. Another thing, when you mentioned Frankenstein, Gothic is a word. I was saying about like the ghost story and like what are the fairy tale elements here. I mean, it is sort of a Gothic fable in a way, also combined with the thriller.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those tales. You say ghost story. I love ghost stories. I wanted to write a ghost story, but I may someday. And even when I pitched this to my agent, I gave her 5 ideas, and this was the only one with a speculative element. And I was like, she's not gonna choose that, She said, I want you to write girl eyes. I'm like, you're kidding. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It just hits you on a different level when you've got that speculative element, I think.
Yeah. And I tried to write it and convince myself it could happen.
Yeah. That
was very different. Like, I mean, as I was writing it, I had to go into a sort of like trance-like state. How would this happen? You know how it is. Right?
Yeah.
And when I think you emailed me something about the movie Arrival.
Yes. I mean, I wanted to talk to you about that, but I mean, just like that was like going to be one of my next questions, but like I can just quickly say what I was going to ask, and then I want to hear what you have to say. Sure. But I mean, there's a couple so Arrival was like one of the most famous examples of this very sort of niche genre, if you want to classify it that way, of like dramatizing a learning of a language, right? And that is like it is a very dramatic learning of a language, as yours is very dramatic. But it's Arrival, which is this movie with Amy Adams, and it's by Denis Villeneuve, and who recently did Dune, and it's all about these 12 alien ships that come to Earth, and then they have to speak. And Amy Adams is this like language professor, similar to Val in Erica's book, and she shows up and she has to try to interpret what these aliens are saying based on nothing. And that's, I mean, Val, in your book, she has a background in Nordic languages, but this is not a language that's spoken by anybody and nobody recognizes it. So anyway, I just thought that was like, where do you begin? It's just sort of a fascinating interaction,
Sure. Well, I have to tell you, I don't know if I saw that movie before or after I started writing this book, but when I saw that movie, I was like, this is the feeling I want. It's amazing you picked this out. It's amazing. I watched it over and over and over. I wrote down every scene. How did that person write this? It's based on a short story, and it was so simply done and so beautifully done. And the soundtrack to that movie is, when I work, I either work with complete silence or very subtle soundtrack. So I worked with that soundtrack on writing this book, and you just called it. I don't know how you did it.
I felt it.
How did you do that? I'm serious. But I wanted that feeling. I don't know if our audience has seen this movie, but you have Amy Adams and you have these aliens come down. It's so subtly done. So, oh my God. And there's this moment where they're not making any progress, right? She's trying to communicate with them, and she's sick of it. So I think she takes off her protective gear, and she reaches out to the glass. I'm doing it right now to you.
Yeah, what a great scene.
What a scene. And it's terrifying. And the creature, or whatever, is reaching out, and like they don't touch each other, but they touch the glass. And it's just that feeling that's just sent chills up my spine. Like, communication is so profound.
Yeah.
It stops wars. It starts wars. It makes us human. It's what makes us human. And just to be brave about communication and to figure out a way. So I guess with my story, I talked to several linguists about how would Val talk to this child whose language had no base in any languages that we know.
Right.
And so they were like, well, it's kind of like, the kid's a baby, and the way you talk to a baby, you show them an apple and you say apple, and they try to make them say apple. But in Val and Sigrid's case, Sigrid was terrified. Can you imagine? You wake up, you're not even wearing clothes you went to sleep in or that you were wearing before. Your parents are gone, replaced by God knows who. You're in a building. What's that? And so she was terrified and pissed off, and she didn't want to communicate. So Val can know any language in the world, but if I don't want to communicate with you, I'm not going to communicate with you. Yeah. And it wasn't until Val figured out, or Sigrid figured out, that she better communicate in order to stay alive, that started happening.
Yeah. I really loved some of these scenes. There's like, so you've invented this language for her, and I know that you studied a lot of Nordic languages to try to come up with this invented language. And most of the time, the technique you use in the book is like, you do give us some of that invented language, but most of the time you just give us the English words that she's saying. What you say, she said it in her language, but then we see the English words. But it's like incredibly powerful because, I just have such an image of Sigrid, the young girl, and how urgently she's trying to communicate. And I just want to read like this one extremely brief passage. She's looking up at the sky and then seeing the northern lights with Val at one point. And she's trying to explain she sees, which is like her kind of conception of heaven and the afterlife. And this is what she says. Children, dead, spirits, play, dance, sky, alive. And it's like just so elemental, and it's like, it's probably not coming across at all with me just reading that, but when you see those words and you read them and you know what she's talking about, these people, that her relatives that she misses, and she's trying to kind of communicate about her conception of the afterlife with Val in these rudimentary terms. I found the whole dynamic, and I found the technique just very poignant.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was difficult to write someone who can't speak, or who can speak, but we don't understand what she's saying.
Right.
So that was an exercise, right? You know, they have to communicate to you everything by what they do and their expressions and their reactions, which is a great like acting exercise, I guess, right? But yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Dare I ask? I mean, there are like some words in this language. Like, I'm just wondering. I'm totally putting you on the spot, and you can say no. But I'm wondering, like, could you read some of this, or like, all right? And if you say no, which is totally fine, this language that you invented, like, at least tell me, can you hear it in your head, like how?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't have it. I mean, I don't have a section to read. That's you.
But
I mean,
would you read it out loud to yourself, like while you were writing and stuff?
all the time.
Really?
I need to know what it sounds like. Absolutely. So when you say I studied Nordic languages, well, what I did was, I mean, I just listened to people speak Finnish. I listened to people speak Norwegian.
Yeah.
Even, you know, Viking languages. There are recordings of such things to try to come up with something that sounded Nordic, but that was not, you know, not identifiable as I mean, they're quite basic syllables. They're quite phonetically written. So I felt like, I'm glad it came off, because as I was doing it, I was like, this is really weird. I mean, this is really, is this stupid or like, you know, silly? You know, you know how you're writing, it's like, what am I doing? Okay, she's talking in another language. And I've made up these nonsense words. And I didn't want to make too many, because then that would get.
Yeah. So I thought it was handled with like a very light touch,
Yeah.
which was great. It really worked. So, all right, folks, we're like 7:30 here. And like, so if you have questions, please pop them in the chat and we will get them to Erica. I've got a bunch more of my own that I want to get to, but so
Yeah,
one of the things. So one of the things I really want to talk to you about, Erica, is like how I understood your book on a metaphorical level. Okay. So, all right.
The moment has come.
I hope this lives up to the hype. But when I say hype, I mean our text messages back and forth with me hyping it.
That's our personal hype. I hope it lives up to our personal hype. Right.
None of the world would know about this hype.
That's right.
But,
we live in our own little world.
So give me a second to set this up. So I often wonder, because I have my show, The Thoughtful Bro, that airs every Tuesday on A Mighty Blaze, and I interview
fabulous,
authors.
And everyone should watch it. Oh, so good.
Thank you, Erica.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so every Tuesday at 2 on A Mighty Blaze, I have a show called The Thoughtful Bro, which is about to become a podcast as well. And I interview all kinds of authors. So I am often, so I do, all of which is to say, I read a lot of books and I talk to people about a lot of books. And so often a kind of a fruitful path for me when I'm trying to think about the things that I want to talk to an author about that are interesting is I try to like think about what is activating this author. Like, why did they write this story? Because like, let me tell you folks, if you don't know already, you can't write a novel unless there's like some deep, powerful current that you're tapping into, because it's a years and years long process. And you potentially are facing tons of rejection. Even there's a hard road to publishing. Even then it gets published, people might hate it. I mean, it is an uphill, in my mind, glorious climb, but it's a big fight to get a book out there and get a book written. And you got to be motivated by something powerful and deep. So I'm often wondering, like, what is it that's working within this author that made it irresistible? For example, Erica's talking about this foot that she saw, right? A foot. Most of us wouldn't see a foot in our imagination and think, I'm going to spend 3 years writing a novel about that. But Erica did. Why? I think these are interesting questions. So what I was thinking, and now this is just my theory, and regardless of whether Erica thinks that this is why she was writing the book on some level, it worked for me and it resonated with me in this way. So this is what I think the metaphor is. I think Sigrid is like the muse. I think Sigrid is the unconscious urge to create art, AKA the muse. Good. And I think the ice that she is in is the barrier between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. So the muse and this like spark of an artistic idea, not specifically this book, but any idea. This is a metaphor for all artistic creation. The spark originally for a book is like in the ice, trapped in the unconscious. At some point, it crosses over into the conscious mind. And in what form does it cross over? It crosses over very much like Sigrid in this book. It is like this screaming child that is like freaking out and like and like tearing things apart and running away from you, and you're like, no, talk to me, like I know you want to say, and like she also urgently wants to communicate, and you and Val, who is like sort of the artist in this metaphor, is talking to Sigrid and talking to the muse and saying, please, like I want to know what you want to say, like I want to communicate it to the world, will you please tell me, and will you trust me with what you want to say? And so that, like this book, all of a sudden, when you start reading it as a metaphor for artistic creation and like the process of the artist interpreting what this like screaming, wild, profound, ancient inspiration, translating that into something that the world can understand.
I'm gonna cry. Oh
yeah, that's how I took it. And then just sort of on a lighter note, and then I certainly want to hear what you have to say, but like it also, once you like accept that as like this is the metaphor of the book, it like sort of sheds weird light on like other interactions. Like just to take one, there's like a scene in the book where like all the people like in like all the scientists are like sitting around drinking cheap wine, and they're like, well, how are we going to get Sigrid to talk? And like, I don't know. And they're just like, and I was just like, this is so like a bunch of writers sitting around at a bar being like, oh, I just can't, I'm inspired, but I just can't make it work. And like, I don't know what this project's about. And like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. And it's like, that is like the interaction.
My muse is frozen in ice and I can't melt it out. But I know it's there and I know I can make it alive, but I don't know how. And Jesus.
And she's like screaming at me with this urgent importance thing. I know the message has to come out, but I can't find the way right now. And then like this, and then ultimately you get a resolution. Anyway, that is my big idea.
That is so moving. I only you, Mark Cecil. We don't call him thoughtful for friggin' nothing. He is thoughtful. He is a bro. But now that you say that, it is like perfect, because when I was imagining Sigrid, I was like, she's got to be this force of nature. She has to find a way to survive. She has to find a way to survive. And that's the big story. It's like, she can't make herself understood. She does drawings. She runs around. She does facial expressions. She kills a bird and saves the feather because she's trying to make something out of it to save herself. Just to be heard and to pass on that message. But yeah, I can't think of a better metaphor for the creative process.
I mean, I honestly can't either.
Even the way she's running away, it's kind of like, on the bad days, you're like, not only is she frozen, she's running away. My idea that seemed so great, or I just can't melt it today. Sorry, can't melt it.
Can't melt it today. That's a t-shirt. But also, I mean, if you just keep, following this metaphor, well, then you can take it even a step further and just be like, these other scientists around there, especially Wyatt, who is sort of like the bad guy in the story, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then you think, well, it's sort of a parable about who the muse talks to, and about like, people's motivations, and sort of like Wyatt is sort of like motivated by something that is like not pure and, not totally morally good. And it's like, but Val is somebody who is sort of like the chosen vessel, because she is like sort of treating the muse in the right way, and she's like an upright person, and she's like the person in the position to hear from the muse. And I don't know, I mean, it's just a parable about inspiration.
And Wyatt might be, the other side of the personality that says, you suck. I'm sorry. You have no good ideas. Who did you think you were that you did?
Yeah.
And in that sense, sort of Val is almost maternal, which he also is in the book.
Yeah.
Like saying, no, this is my kryptonite hard kernel of what I believe in, and I'm going to die saving it. Yeah. And if you look at my bank account, no, just kidding. Because there's a myth that, we authors are rich, even that, no, not quite yet, working on that one. But, and then the other ones are sort of, I don't know how far we can take this metaphor. The other people, but and Jean might be sort of, I don't know. I'm not sure how that fits, but
it does. I mean, I don't know. I mean, eventually any metaphor breaks apart, but I mean, I just like, I would just say one last thing about it, because I have some other questions I want to ask you, but
sure.
it moved me on like a lot of levels. It moved me because it as a metaphor, I mean, first of all, again, just want to reiterate, this is a thriller and you can read it just on the thriller level.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And it will get you. But we're digging into this thing now. And I just want to say, like, it moved me because it's kind of sort of like any good metaphor, any useful metaphor, it shed light on my own creative process. And it shed light on things that like I've gone through. But it also just sort of like made me like deeply empathetic towards you, because like this, and I'm thinking about you when 3 years ago at that dinner, you were sort of like, gently, cautiously trotting out this idea of maybe there's a girl on ice. And it's like, in some way,
and then
it's like,
you know what, and do you remember what you said? And
wait,
then you said, you were like, there's 9 of us or 10 of us, and we're celebrating Joe Moldover's wonderful release. And you said, tell us the story, and I was like, oh, I can't expose myself like this. I wasn't ready to expose it for not criticism or just any kind of, but I'm a very private writer. You know that about me. Yeah. I'm very solo, too solo probably. But anyway, that's how I work. So
anyway, I was just thinking about that moment, and I was just thinking like, yeah, no, that was sort of the moment that like you had thought of the girl in ice, the story, but it was also the moment that this metaphorical girl in ice had sort of emerged from your own subconscious. And like now you were going to spend the next 3 years trying to speak its language or her language.
Shipping her out. We ought to chip it out.
A lot of chipping out. Okay. So I want to talk about travel to Greenland. And like, I know that you have some photos. I mean, like, you always do this thing where you go to these incredible exotic places and you like go into the wilderness. And this time it was Greenland, and there's just like so many wonderful things about that trip you took. And if you are up for it and you want to show us a few photos, I mean, that would be great. Excuse me.
So I'm going to share my screen, and let's first just make sure this works. Okay.
Yeah, right.
All right.
And also, I do see a few questions in there, so
okay.
Let's make sure we leave some time for people's questions.
So basically, I can talk about so many different things. I can talk about language. I can talk about. You want me to talk about language a little bit?
Sure, talk about language. I love like some of the things you talk about, like words that Greenlandic language has that we don't, and their relationship.
Sure. Well, here are some blessings and curses.
Yeah.
On the life and death importance of dressing when the Arctic, because pissing in one's shoes keeps no one warm for long. When summer is short to non-existent and winter's stuck together like copulating dolls. And so summer is between 30 and 50 days in Greenland, and sometimes it doesn't show up at all.
Ooh,
and then it's kind of like those dogs. And that really is a blessing. May your life be rich in seals. This is a hunting and subsistence culture, which is something to talk about, but it's another thing to actually witness.
Yeah.
There are words in the Inuit language. When I say Inuit language, there's East Greenlandic, West Greenlandic, and Inuktitut. Let me just talk about Greenland first of all. Greenland is a third the size of Canada. It's a massive, massive, massive landmass. And only 56,000 people live there.
Yeah.
I know community colleges with 56,000 people. So in any case, there's East Greenlandic and West Greenlandic. They don't really understand each other. But here's an Inuit word that means to take extraordinary pleasure in being alive and feeling inseparable from nature. And there's no equivalent in English. And the word Inuktitut for climate change is that word, which means a friend acting strangely, which obviously betrays their relationship to nature, which is not antagonistic as it is for us. I mean, we have a snowstorm in the Northeast and it's like the end of the damn world, right? It's a snowmageddon. It impacts our convenience, but in this culture, the outside world is absolutely necessary to them, their survival. And then there is the great necessity, which is the crucial importance of knowing the nature, character, quality, and behavior of everything that surrounds you. That includes ice, that includes what animals are walking by. You know, just quickly, the cliche that is that there are a dozen words for snow, but there are over 170 words for ice. Because if I need to describe ice to you,
Right.
I mean, there's one kind of ice that's just fresh, new ice. It's kind of leathery and, you know, it's not safe. There's another kind of ice that's thick enough to support a man, but not a polar bear.
Right.
And it's thin enough so a seal can make a breathing hole. So it's great hunting ice. So I need to be able to describe that to you quickly.
Right.
I'm just flipping through. This is a picture.
I mean, one thing, Erica, I was just, you know, there's a town in the book. I want to get the name right. It's called
Canuck.
Canuck. Okay.
Yeah.
So by the way, the first thing I noticed about Canuck, which is spelled Qaanaaq, is that it's a palindrome. And, you know, I like this. So that led me to look up like how many places in the world are palindromes. And there's only like a dozen places in the world that are palindromes longer than that. So super nerd detour just for a few seconds there. But so Canuck, but it's this town of like 620 people. It's one of the northernmost towns in the world. And so the thing that struck me, Erica, is like, you said you didn't go to Canuck, but you went to like some other towns that were even smaller. And I'm just like thinking like, what is the culture like in these places? Like, what are these people like? What do they talk like? What do they act like? Is it just sort of like going to Maine, but a little bit less populated? Or is it like going to the moon, you know?
It's more like going to the moon in the sense that, well, first of all, I don't understand the language I don't speak Greenlandic.
Yeah.
People are either speaking Greenlandic or Danish, very little English.
Okay.
They're going about their daily lives. What are their daily lives? Hunting and subsistence culture, hunting, and also, you know, tourism is coming up.
It is. So you showing up there, you know, as a tourist basically was like not totally out of the blue for them. They're used to people coming through.
Not a lot of people,
right?
But people, and there will be more.
Yeah.
You know, this is
look at that.
A fjord. This is the fjord this is the journey we took from that town, which was called Tasselak, to, that's a glacier, the first glacier that we saw, to this setup here, this sort of camp, which was a brilliant setup. And there was nothing. I mean, there was.
Is that where you lived, in like one of these little things?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
I lived in one of these little things. That's the view to the back, where
it
I
looks
saw
like you're on
my first polar bear coming down that scree there.
Wow.
That's the view to the front. Here's a close-up. See, it's not bad, right?
Look at that. I sort of want to go.
You totally want to go. And like, you know, I don't know what we're breathing here, but it's not air. That is air. It is the cleanest, clearest. I was high for the entire time. And then surrounding this is this little piece of crap fence to keep out these guys.
Yeah.
You know, which was kind of. So we took trips. I'm wearing a Mustang suit, which is a suit with a flotation device sewn in. Here I am standing in front of my little.
Did you learn any Greenlandic, by the way?
I had no time to do that. I learned a few words, but I
like, can you just say hello? How do you say hi?
I don't even know. Isn't that terrible? I don't even know. Well, my guide spoke English.
Yeah.
You know, I did not learn that.
It's crazy though to think. I mean, like there's probably only about 50,000 people or 70,000 people who speak it on. I mean, there's like more people in Newton, Mass than there are in Greenland.
Exactly. These are massive pieces of ice. And a few slides away, you'll be able to see how big they are really. And they're carved and formed into this thing was like a caterpillar. It was 3 blocks long, several stories high. That's a calving, to show what calving was, since I got off the internet, just to show you what I saw, then I wasn't able to capture it. But this is just to give you a sense of how, see that tour boat?
You didn't go through that thing, did you?
No, that's the stupid tour, the other stupid tour group. Going under this massive arch that can break at any time. It can break at any time. Look at that.
Wow.
That's not what we did. So I'm standing in front of the Helheim Glacier, which I later learned.
Look at that. That's a baller photo. Look at you. Queen of the world.
Queen of the world. Helheim, did you know that? And Helheim translates into land of the dead. Who knew? But this glacier has been receding 6.8 miles a year. So there's a kind of a close-up of it.
Wow.
I did go to the ice cap. The massiveness of it. I mean, the ice cap is 1,500 miles north to south, 700 miles east to west, 2 miles deep.
Yeah.
And it has rivers like a mile down, miles wide, running.
Yeah. And
this was not our tour group, once again, but just to give you an example of scale. And this is the town of Knit. This is 120 people. This is my guide. And this is a quota for hunting of polar bear, walrus, minke whale, and pilot whale.
Wow.
And, the thing is, if you see a polar bear, if a polar bear is seen, unfortunately, it's hunted, because they're very aggressive and people are afraid of them.
Yeah.
And they are purportedly taste very delicious.
Is that true? I don't think I'd ever eat a polar bear, but
no, I would never eat it. I never eat it. And this is a guy, dragging a seal, obviously, and I was told some story, some lore. This is sort of going back to that word that means the great necessity, what we do to stay alive. So anyway, this hunter was out hunting. His kayak hit an iceberg, ripped it. He knew he only had a few minutes before he sank into 30-degree water. So he harpooned the seal. He brought it in. He gutted it through its mouth. He inflated it, tied it off, and rowed it to shore.
Inflated it?
He inflated it, and he tied it off, and he rowed it to shore to survive. It's not new.
Wait, how do you inflate it? Like blew it up with his mouth? Oh my God. Incredible.
These are cairns. I'm just showing you how huge they are there.
Yeah.
We were familiar with the little short ones when we go hunting, when we go hiking, you see little piles of rocks. Yeah. But these were made culturally. They were made for all kinds of reasons, to point toward good hunting grounds or to be burial sites. Sometimes they tied pieces of wings of Arctic terns and little bones that would make sounds and might scare a herd of caribou toward the hunters. And again, you needed, the ground was frozen. That's why they had to bury people in these rocks.
So Erica, we've only got about 10 minutes left, and I know there is some questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I could go on and on, but let's do you want me to stop the share?
Well, I don't know. Amanda, if there's a way to pop up these questions. Wait, I can actually read it. Okay, here we go. So we have one from Sonia. Now that you've started to hear from readers, what's the most interesting response you've heard so far from readers?
Now that I've started to hear from readers, just the range of reactions, everything from, this is the best story I've ever read, to one was like, this would never happen. I'm like, yeah, probably not. Probably not. But and one was really interesting. We're talking about language and the language that I made up. And just a small spoiler, I mean, one of the things that makes his language that this girl uses interesting is that the first words he says reveals her feeling, whether it be happy, sad, angry, and so on. That's how she starts a sentence. Happy expression, you know, on and on. So she starts with feeling and goes on to reveal what she's trying to say. And just someone said, wow, that's like emojis, you know? And I just thought that was pretty cool. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, we do that. Sometimes we don't even say anything else. We'll just use these emojis, and we put together an entire sentence sometimes, or just a complex emotion.
It's sort of like in Greenland, there's like 190 words for ice, but in America, there's 190 emojis for I feel grumpy.
Oh my God, look at those faces. I'm crying hard. No, I'm crying rivers. No, I'm laughing so hard that my chin, no. And which is which is very revealing about the different ways that we feel miserable. I don't know. Right? That we're just that we're angry, that we're, you know. Yeah.
And it's also just what we culturally feel is necessary to express. Exactly. Not the amount and quality of ice, but our mood on social media. Okay, here we go. Here is one from the fabulous founder of A Mighty Blaze, Jenna Blum. Hi, Jenna. Are you able to write while you're on tour, Zoom tour or otherwise? And how even do you do that?
How even? I am not able to write when I am on tour. I am barely able to put on clean clothes, and no. No, you know what? I tried in so I was like, oh, January came around. I was like, oh, you know, I'll put aside a few days. I was overwhelmed. So now I've put it aside. I'm really got my eye on early May to get back to a book I'm writing now. But I just was like, all right, let go and let tour, you know, it's fine. Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of fun not to write. Sorry. It's like, you know, writing's really hard. And
let me ask you, Erica, on that note,
and what's that?
I mean, you came up with Girl on Ice. You had this kind of vision, or what you want to call it, this image of the foot, and it was this deep subconscious thing, and you had to chase it, and it was a novel-worthy image worth exploring. Are you waiting for such an image for the next book, or is there, like, do you need that to start a book? Is there a different way to start a book for you?
Well, I better not wait for images. Otherwise, it'll be a really long wait.
So that was unusual. You know, like that was a special thing.
The image of the girl, that was unusual.
Yeah.
But honestly, I had to back it up with, yeah, so what? A girl, what? You know, like, and then I had to go back, okay, so wouldn't it be cool to put her in a climate research center and Arctic, and then I went back. But the next book is more, isn't so much image based like that.
Right. Okay.
Can't talk too much about it, but I can say this. I can say that it is a thriller, and it concerns nature fighting back.
Like in a concerted effort, or just like, you know, an animal fights back. It's like all nature.
In a concerted effort, and the book is called The Intelligence.
Whoa. I'm getting some like Jeff Vandermeer kind of vibes. I mean, a little bit. Not
fantabulous.
Okay, got it. Not that speculative, right?
I can't, but you know, I can't really say quite yet.
Okay.
I mean, you know how it is, like I put it aside. I haven't looked at it for 5 months, you know, and I've had thoughts, you know, since then. Yeah. I've had thoughts. what it needs to change and all that, but
well, it looks like we just need to go out with Joe Moldover to another dinner, and then you're gonna tell me the story.
I know.
All right, look, let's do one more question before we wrap. This actually is from Joe Moldover of all people. Hi,
Oh
Joe.
my God, Joe.
Joe is a great, for those who don't know, he's an incredible YA author who wrote a book called Every Moment After.
Love that book.
Which is a wonderful book.
I still think about it.
Right? Talk about haunting.
Wow.
Okay. I know Erica always has a first draft before she travels for her research. I'm wondering if she has ever been surprised by a research trip in a way that has changed the direction of the book.
That would be a great story, but it hasn't happened. What the trips have done have validated what I've read, amplified on what I've read, given me detail of the story, but they have not contradicted anything. I really research before I go.
Yeah.
There is nothing. I eat every book that has anything to do with Greenland or any kind of Arctic travel. And then yeah, I mean, I don't think anything that I saw changed my books. Not yet. It may happen someday, So
fascinating. All right. Well, look, before we wrap, I have a question that I love to ask every author who comes on Thoughtful Bro. And you may know this already, and so you may be prepared. But I like to spring it on people. Basically, just imagine an ideal reader for A Girl in Ice, which everybody should buy for themselves and their friends and their friends' friends. Buy a bunch of copies right now. Just open up a new browser tab. I know we put the link. There it is. The link just popped into the chat. Go ahead and buy it from Belmont Books, who thank you again for hosting. But my last question. Is: imagine that there's an ideal reader for this book. And they're just kind of getting it in just the way you always dreamed that they would get it. I mean, just the way you conceived it. They're just like picking up everything you're putting down and reacting just the way you want somebody to react in your wildest dreams. And then imagine this ideal reader closes the book and they're sitting there and the feeling of the book is washing over them. Describe for me in a word or a phrase, what is the feeling that reader has when they finish Girl in Ice?
Do you know how long I've been waiting for you to ask me that? We were sitting at the table and you asked me what the book was about. I'm like, I hope someday he'll ask me that question. But
how climactic.
What's that?
How climactic.
No, not at all.
This moment.
I mean, I really hope that when the ideal reader closes the book, that they will come away with a profound sense of wonder in the world, that they're that just fall in love with the fact that there still is mystery in the world, and just feel like they've gone on this incredible adventure, come out the other side, been through the ringer emotionally, even physically, and went along for the ride, and just renewed sense of joy and wonder in this natural world that we have, and maybe a little hope about it. This message that the girl brings. So
yeah.
I am always aware that I am creating entertainment. That is my number one. But but entertainment, when you think about it, is a very profound concept.
How so?
Because what is entertainment to you?
Are you asking me?
Yep.
Oh,
how would you describe entertainment to you? What
entertains me in particular?
What does it hit you? What does it hit in you that makes you feel entertained?
I would say, so sometimes, like, aside from just like being scared or laughing, it's kind of like basic things, like the deeper kind of entertainment that I really seek, like particularly from like a novel, is a form of kind of like engagement. And it's a form of like truly, to say that you're like, escaping into it is like not even remotely good enough to say what I'm trying to say, which is like, you're just like profoundly, your whole soul is sort of like wrestling in this wonderful way with what's in the book, you know?
You forget yourself completely.
Totally. Yeah.
You have left for all intents and purposes. And that's what the human mind needs for mental health.
Yes.
Since we were drawing on caves and telling stories of the dinosaurs outside that almost killed us that day, you know, we need to tell these stories. But you also need to be the person sitting next to the person telling the story. You need to also be that person absorbing the story and leaving your own cares and worries and everything behind. So that's why I think entertainment is a very profound concept. So that's the height of what I'm trying to do. So I don't see entertainment as a low class word. I think it's something I strive for, you know, balancing my own interests and fascinations with the demands of a perceived audience that wants something, please God, to take them away for a little while. Do you know what I mean?
My goodness, that is so beautifully said.
It's all yours.
I'm speechless right now. That was like so wonderful. Like that is like exactly what I believe about entertainment and books and what is best about books. And I don't think I've kind of ever heard it said quite like that.
You said it. I made you just because I mean, what we're trying to do is just it's as difficult as all that. It's as difficult as all that. And but it's so my ideal reader, that's what I want to give to them. That's what I want them to have. You know, that's my gift to the world. You know, I'm a crappy cook. I don't have children of my own. This is the thing I do, you know. So that's why I go to these places, because at least in these 3 books, the setting was so important. And so if I can get it right, I want to get it right. Of course, I loved it. I'm not a martyr. I love these stories.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, you know, but you know, the story is the most important thing. The human story comes first, because how many polar bears can you, I mean, so.
Well, look, I mean, you gave something to me. I absolutely was engaged in just the way you're describing. I feel like there's probably Aristotle probably has some very fancy word for that particular feeling, but I was carried away in just that way. I also just want to say as a final comment that the ending of the book was quite beautiful. And I just mean like the writing in that final flourish in the last page or so was just totally well done.
Can't remember it, but thank you.
It was about hope, and it tied into what you were saying about the final
was.
feeling. It was a wonderful passage. Well, Erica, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much. Thank you for Belmont for hosting. Folks, please buy the book. It's terrific.
Thank you. It's been amazing.
Just a reminder, we have Girl in Ice at the store in hardcover. It's currently a staff pick for April.
Yay! Thank you, staff.
So it's on display. It is wonderful Susan Bernard's staff pick this month. Some of you may know Susan, friend of the store. We also have Erica's other books, The River at Night and Into the Jungle, on our shelves now. If you are unfamiliar and want to just dive deep into the backlist, we have those available in paperback. Erica, thank you. Mark, you want to plug Thoughtful Bro one more time where people can find it?
Oh, just if you put in Thoughtful Bro to Google or markcecilauthor.com, it all airs on A Mighty Blaze. And in the next month or so, I'm going to launch the Thoughtful Bro podcast, which is going to take some of my best interviews and pop them into the podcast format. So Tuesdays at 2.
Great driving material.
Great driving material.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, for letting me plug.
No problem. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Mark. Thank you to Erica. And hopefully people will attend another one of these virtual events or an in-person one within the next coming months over the summer. That would be lovely.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Thank you.